Chris Davis is back in studio with me today. So all the cutoffs, all the deadlines, if you haven't registered to vote, you suck and you're not getting to vote this time. So like all the deadlines and stuff, so that Chris has like a full picture of what's currently happening that we're going to chat about, as well as a number of other items and doodads and whatnots that we are aware of here locally. We're almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. You can go on our website, almostinagreement.com, and get all the episodes there, as well as all your favorite podcast providers. So while you're at any of these places, please like, share, subscribe, friend, retweet, follow, whatever the thing is that place does to help spread the word for us. And now that all the parts and pieces are official, go to almostinagreement.com/cityelections21. That's my very simple cheat sheet breakdown. It'll get you the full list of everybody who's running, what district they're in, links to KGIS, links to the Knox County Election Commission. So if you have any questions about how to vote, where to vote, that kind of thing, this is a good place to start, at least. I don't promise I'm perfect at it, but with that being said, Chris Davis, everybody, Election Commission, Knox County, and we're going to chat about some stuff. Chris, buddy, it's good to have you back.
Hey, glad to be here. Can you hear me? Am I close enough?
I think you're good.
Okay,
I can do some stuff at post if it's not quite enough, but
good deal.
Me and the kids have been down here messing around with stuff, so everything's.
I saw the dog's ball right here. I want to make sure I don't, tick him off.
He has been not quite friendly to some guests, so I've started.
I heard maybe it was Lauren Ryder last week. I can't. Roberto, was he?
I mean, the funniest one was I'm blanking on his name. He's not running this time.
Frommeyer?
No, he was District 4 a couple years ago. He started to run this year, but opted out. Chris, no. Damn it. I should know his name. I was in a band with him. Anyway, he was really not, he was the least friendly, but and I know it's just been weird. Like, he has a number of items. Like, he likes to chew up pillows off the couch over here when it's the regular crew. And it's like, I don't care if he bites any of those people because they're my friends.
Right.
It's, strangers coming in that I do care about getting mauled by my vicious dog. And I mean, I don't think he'd actually really hurt anybody. It's just he's big and excitable, and he would accidentally hurt somebody. Well, so now that we have a brief history of Rowdy, the fifth member of the show, Chris Davis, Knox County Election Commission. So deadline was yesterday.
Monday.
Today's Wednesday, yeah. 2 days ago. If you haven't registered yet, it's too late. Yep. So let's I have a particular opinion on this, and as most of you guys know, I don't like the way city elections work, but I guess it doesn't matter because I don't get to vote in them. But just a quick rundown, make sure I'm right, is on August 31st is the primaries. Even if there's 2 or 3 candidates, doesn't matter, you go primary, but you're only primary in your district. So for example, if you live in District 1, you get to go primary, and it's Hayes, Smith, and Murphy. The top 2 of those will go into November.
That's correct.
And then when you come back in November, if you're in District 1, you not only will have whoever the 2 is from District 1, you'll also have the top 2 candidates from all the other districts running, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6.
That is correct.
Stupid. It's really stupid. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's my opinion part of that. I just want to make sure that part's right. So that's November 2nd is the general. Is that right?
First Thursday in November. I believe that's the second.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Tuesday, excuse me.
Early November, whatever it is, figure it out. It's
Yep.
the cool thing about November and the early part of it is that's my birthday, and that's why it's special, not because of elections. Okay, so there's a couple different things going on in this one that I find exciting and interesting. We've talked before about how I don't like the party system. This is a nonpartisan ballot, but we do have the joy of having an attempt at a voter petition or a body petition for a ballot item. So we had the cap the tax thing that was an attempted community ballot item initiative. How did that finish as far as, well, actually, let's go back. What are the numbers required? And then let's see how it did compared to it.
Okay. Well, ultimately what you're referring to is a gentleman by the name of Eric Wider, submitted a petition to the Election Commission. I want to say sometime back in May, ultimately looking to have a question put on the ballot to put forth to the city voters of the city of Knoxville to cap the property tax rate. And, he needed to get a certain percentage, and I have to go back and look at the city charter, but I think it may have been something like 7% of the registered voters as of January 1 of the year that he's submitting the petition, which was this year. And it ended up being, with 105,000, give or take, registered city voters, ended up being about 7,427 signatures that he needed. He had 75 days, and basically until the close of business 2 days ago, August 2nd, to get that. He did not My understanding is he did not reach that threshold, and then did not by 4:30 on Monday return the petition to us.
So he didn't. He knew he didn't make it, so he didn't bother submitting.
That's correct, and,
Okay.
and frankly, just from a procedural perspective, I'm glad he did not, because if he had, then I would have had to call a meeting, basically to reject him, and so I get to save myself one meeting called, basically. So.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll have to reach out and see if I can get a hold of him and get what the final number is. I have a theory on it, which I fully understand that as I approach this theory, you cannot speak on this or are likely unable to speak on this. My theory on it is that there's a set of candidates that he is supporting as well that are running in the city election, and this was a way for him to support his candidates without directly doing so. This was a way for him to get a lot of door knocking and a lot of the different stuff and a lot of the hoopla to get people interested, which for your and I's sake, and I know you can agree with this one at least, is that the goal being it's trying to drive voter turnout.
Absolutely.
And I think, whether I'll try to ask Eric about this if he's willing to talk to me about it, whether it was intentional or whether the goal was to actually get the petition to get it on the ballot, or whether the goal was to publicize this particular city election. I think it's the latter personally, but
either way, I think one of the interesting things to me, just having a conversation with him, could have been 2 weeks ago, could have been a month ago, I don't remember. But one of the interesting things, just from a, like you say, turnout perspective, that I found interesting was he had indicated to me that people that he was actually able to get in front of, he had some success with, whereas people that he just mailed it to, I guess cold,
Right.
if you will, he didn't obviously get the response rate that he wanted. And I think that, aside from him or the issue, I think that speaks to the need for any candidate to get in front of the voters.
Right.
To
the door knocking is
press
the
the
game.
flesh, as
Yeah.
opposed to just mail them something.
Right.
And I'm sure, Seth, you've gotten political mail in the past. I have.
Oh, back in 20, we had a running joke about it because I'm in 18 and I had that the Manus couch race.
Yeah.
And that one.
Something has to be very unique for me to take it and not put it in file 13 immediately. Pretty
Right.
much. Yeah.
And you're right. And I do, and the only reason I kept them because we were talking about it. Like I had a stack, I think it's actually on our website. If you go to our website, there's a picture where I have them all kind of spread out in collage. And it's just, I want to say that there was a week that in 6 days of mail, I got 9 flyers specifically about that District 18 race. Some pro, some against, some third parties,
I'm
and
sure there
whatever
was
they
a number of
do.
third parties, if memory
All right,
serves. Yeah.
so that rolls us into the next thing that I wanted to talk about. So the cap the tax didn't get submitted, which we can assume from that, or I can assume from that at least, that the numbers weren't enough. But 7,400 was the number to get, and they didn't get there on that, assuming that was the intent in the first place. So moving past that into the other kind of topical item, and this is more of one of my general procedural questions, is there has been a complaint filed against the Clanaris campaign on improper funding or improper financing or whatever, an improper donation from a corporation.
Yeah, you get a question out of that, but I can explain it, I think.
Okay,
to some degree.
Because I think one of the things that confused me about it is like the corporation's only $250. Me as an individual citizen can do $1,500 per election, so it would be primary and general. So I could do $3,000 on an election.
I want to clarify that.
Okay, run it down
I'll
for me.
clarify both those. So for an individual can give per current campaign finance law $1,600 per election to a candidate. And so someone can, if you're running for city council this year, for instance, Seth, someone could write you a $3,200 check, $1,600 for the primary, $1,600
Right.
for the general. Assuming you move on to the general, that's your money. If you don't move on to the general, then you have to figure out some way to refund that $1,600. Hopefully you've held on to it. However, campaign finance law, and I'm limited in what I can say just because the Registry of Election Finance, quick backstory, I had a situation, I guess, back in April where Scott Barker of Compass called me and asked me a question about somebody's campaign financial disclosure. I gave him the straight answer from the statute. The registry, for lack of a better term, kind of slapped my hand, the Registry of Election Finance in Nashville, and said, you don't have any enforcement power, which I don't, so you shouldn't be answering those questions. So I said, okay, fine. However, I will explain it to you as I understand it. An individual, and I think I learned this from your podcast and then went to maybe Tennessee Holler. I don't know where I saw that at, but if you want to file a campaign financial disclosure complaint, you file it with the Attorney General. And so we did. I think this individual did that here in Knox County, the 6th Judicial District. Sharm Allen, she's a DA, alleging that the Clanaris campaign had received a donation in excess of what is allowed by a corporation, because if a corporation is limited to X amount, then they have to file as a PAC, which I think,
Right.
so in my mind, it's more of a, this is more the PAC's issue, not necessarily the candidate's issue. But I'm going to let the registry take care of that. The only question I had, because I think the law has changed, is everybody keeps throwing this $250 per quarter thing around. That has changed to $1,000 a year.
Right.
So, and you may or may not know that, but there's
I heard it, but it's it's 6 or a half dozen, whatever.
You could argue that, but on the flip side, that basically means somebody could write $1,000 check, and then they're done as a business and not have to file as a PAC.
Right.
And so I guess the bottom line is, at least from what I understand, is the.
But I mean, who's campaigning at this point doesn't run at least 4 quarters?
Well.
I mean, you're gonna get that $1,000 out at some point.
True, but you're getting it in one lump sum as opposed to. But anyway, beside the point. It is, that has to be filed with the Attorney General. The Attorney General makes a determination.
Okay, so again, and if this gets you slapped again, I apologize. As far as the mechanics here is, had this individual not filed the complaint to the DA's office, essentially, what happens? Like, nobody pays, because again, I mean, it seems to me that the Tennessee co-nated whatever number, blah, 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 clearly states that in the updated version of it, as you just said, is that it's $1,000 total a year.
That's correct.
The one in question apparently spent $1,600, to which I was reading this morning on Compass, since we're shouting out those guys, that the Clarence campaign returned that $600 difference, apologized for the confusion, because I understand that I would be, I can perfectly sympathize with the idea of getting a little bit confused in the complexities of this particular situation. But I guess, again, the core question being is, if nobody notices, nothing happens?
That's right. Well, somebody, people call us all the time with a complaint.
Right.
And my standard answer is, if you have a complaint, you think it's a valid complaint, talk to the Attorney General. We literally have the form on our website to fill out, which obviously someone did. And that's how you can rectify this situation.
Okay, but it's not under the purview of your job to check it.
That's correct. We literally under the statute, we literally accept these disclosures and we file these disclosures and make them available for public viewing at reasonable. I think the statute says at reasonable hours, which basically is all of the hours that we're open.
Right.
We post, just to be clear, because we're getting this question more this year than ever in my 8 years here, which is interesting because it's a small city election. We post individual disclosures, like from candidates.
Right.
We don't post political action committees. One reason being I'm not required to by law, but reason number 2, up until this year, no one has cared about them. And frankly, it's just one more piece of work I'm putting on us, where I'm trying to get ready for an election. I have 1,000 things to do.
Right.
Why am I going to post a PAC when for every 100 that are filed, 99, nobody, up until this year, I don't know that I've gotten 4 questions about PACs in 8 years. Well, all of a sudden now they're coming hot and heavy because they become an issue in this city race.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Follow up because to file as a PAC, that's a separate set of paperwork, regardless of whether they actually collect money and or spend money on a particular candidate. That part's unimportant for the paperwork side of it. You have to do the paperwork. So I could start a PAC today. You have to deal with that paperwork among the other 1,000 things. And even if I just make my PAC and don't do anything, you still have to do the paperwork.
That's right. And I think what's interesting to me is, I would bet, I would have to go back and look at disclosures to verify this, individual disclosures, but I would imagine that local candidates receive contributions from PACs on a regular basis. But I don't ever see them file a disclosure, a PAC, with our office as the statute says they should. Nobody complains. And nobody ever questions it, really, which is interesting. It's just an interesting caveat in the law. I tell people, if you've got a complaint, talk to the Attorney General, talk to the Registry of Election Finance in Nashville. We'll post them. We'll do whatever. I'll try and answer the basic questions, but beyond that, it's out of my hands.
Right.
And it goes along kind of topic 2, which you may or may not get to, but I get calls every single election about signs.
I'm here to save you time. That's what we're here for.
Thank you.
To hopefully take a little bit of work off your plate.
I appreciate you. The signs, people want to call me when they want to complain that so-and-so's got signs up too early. So-and-so has signs on this location or that location or this public right-of-way or this property. We're not the sign police. I have guidance on my website about if somebody wants to put up a campaign sign on a public piece of property, public right-of-way, school property. The only place where I have authority over political signs, campaign signs, is I can't have them inside the 100-foot boundary of a polling place.
Right.
Other than that, private landowners, the public highway department, that type of thing. We have early voting sites. Like we have Meridian Baptist in South Knoxville. If they don't want them on their property, period. Okay, well, that's their right. The only problem I would have with that is if they allow some and not others. I can't do that. But
Right.
as long as they say none it is.
Right.
So they go outside they go outside their property and put signs up. That's fine.
Right. And that's what my assumption on it. Like, is there a time it's too early? Is that a thing? Could I just put some out right now and leave them?
If private property, you can put them out whenever you want.
So I was gonna say,
your yard, you can put out whoever you want right now.
I'm gonna put Chris Davis 2024 for president right now.
No, I don't think so. No.
I'm just saying, like, it's just a weird. I mean, I guess I get it on the public property side.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's another one too. That if I understand the rules correctly, your campaign is obligated to pick them up after the election. And I was joking with my principal at my school, which is a polling location, but outside the boundary on the corner of the
Rocky
road
Hill?
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
They, everybody, like that whole front lawn, they got them packed in there because it's outside the boundary. And like I joked about getting a scout project was to go clean up the political signs for her, because she's like, nobody ever does it. Nobody ever comes back and gets them.
It's interesting. The statute says you have up to 3 weeks to remove them, the state law, but there's nothing punitive in it if you don't. So it's kind of it's a law with no teeth. The school system specifically has one that says you can't put out signs, I think, before 6 o'clock the night before, and then you have to have them up by 8 o'clock the morning after. So basically you've got a Monday night at 6 o'clock to Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock that you can have signs up.
Right. And the punitive is we'll tear them down for you.
Basically.
That's pretty much all the school system do.
That's basically it. Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so we went over the financing thing.
I like the way you operate without notes, by the way. This is really...
This is the first time I have notes, and that's why
do
I'm
you
being
really?
so late.
Okay.
I have 4 notes, and we've already been through 3
You're
of them.
cheating. Okay.
I know.
Okay.
Well, it's not... I was literally...
I've always been impressed as hell as how you come up with questions like, what list is you on?
These are questions I've been thinking... I mean, this is stuff I've been thinking about and wanted to talk to you about, and why we did the date today instead of a week ago, when we first... Or a couple weeks ago when we first started talking, because the big one, I wanted to see how this... cap the tax thing came out, and I'm pleased for your sake that you didn't have to do the paperwork, but I'm disappointed to not get the actual numbers, because like last time you were here, we were talking a lot about this election coming up and how terrible the numbers are. I mean, okay, so he didn't get 7,400. Did he get 6,500? Because if he got 6,500, that's for for my understanding of the history of primaries, that'd be a significant number as that divides around districts for what normally happens. Because we were looking at it the other night. I think it was District 4 primary was like 1,700 total votes. Yeah. And, I guess it was the last comparable would have been 17, not 19.
Yep.
Because I'm assuming 19 was up because I had the mayor's race in it.
And I believe there were like, in that total primary election in 19 was like 19,000 maybe, something like that.
Right. I don't know what it was then, but now 180,000. So you're looking at...
Well, you've got about 106,000 registered voters in the city. But let me point this out. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, that people want to say, well, people just don't vote in these elections. I looked up the numbers for November 2020. Okay, we had 222,000 people vote in that election countywide. Of those, Seth, over 74,000 were city residents.
Right.
So 74,000 city residents cared enough to come out and vote.
Right, because this is
for president.
Because again, so this goes way into opinion side, and if you don't want to answer, I understand. But because that's where the big conversation. I talked to Matt Shears, I've talked to Randy Pace, I've had Daniel Herrera on and stuff like that. And we talk about the cycles and the turnouts and all this kind of different stuff. And I mean, Matt Shears gives you the impression that Democrats own the city or whatever, and that's kind of true if we look at the makeup, even though it's non-partisan or whatever. But if you go through and look at it, it's kind of that way anyway. And it weirds me out because, we talk all the time about how different the city and county are philosophically, because the county tends to lean more right, the city tends to lean more left. And it's like, well, I have a hard time rationalizing.
Certainly from voting patterns, I agree with that.
Right.
I don't know that I have enough data to agree with that totally.
And that's what's confusing about it, is because you'd think the assumption being, like you were saying, in the 2020, you had a big, huge turnouts, a huge percentage of that was within the city. And they voted for the county commission that we have in place, as well as all the other people on that ballot. But, if we're just looking at the county commission part of it, and a big chunk of city voters who get to vote for county commissioners too, we're voting for the more right-leaning candidates in county commission. But then when we come to city elections, the turnout sucks, and then it tends to lean more left. And that's where it's confusing to me. Like, I don't like, because I made the joke, and I think I told you about this. I pitched a story idea to Hornbeck because I didn't think it made sense coming out of my mouth, but it's like the idea that the local Republicans, who the standard narrative is prefer less turnout, need better turnout to win these races. And so, like, and again, that goes back to what we were talking about in the cap the tax theory. Yeah. It's like, if that's the case, that's what makes my theory make more sense to me, is that this is a way to get turnout, and turnout is enough to beat it because turnout's so low.
I think turnout is these are the one set of elections where your turnout is everything. Any one of these three blocks, if you will,
which further,
if they can get their votes out,
right,
they win. Period. I don't buy that narrative that those voters don't exist. They may not come out, but I don't buy the fact they don't exist.
Right. And furthermore, I mean, like, that's what makes this style of election for the city more frustrating to me, because we get one of the subsets that has a really good turnout in one district, and the rest of the districts do what they normally do, and then we come to the general, and that one district shows up like they did in the primary. All of a sudden, we have candidates from all the districts reflecting what one district that had great turnout doing, which to me is not properly representative of the point. I think Nick, I can't ever say his last name right.
Sapero.
Yeah, I was screwed to say like 5 times.
Well, that's the way he said it was Sapero, and I heard it on your podcast.
And I kept butchering it over
rhymes
and over
with
again.
arrow, so
right.
yeah.
And so, but I mean, I think he put it best. It'd be like, we do our primaries for our federal senators.
And then California
and then the entire nation gets to vote on who our senator is. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
And so I don't know. That's a pet peeve of mine. Again, I'm not a city resident, so I don't really get to complain about it. Yeah. But
nor am I, just for the record.
You city folks out there, if you agree with me, maybe make that an action item and see if they can do something about that in the future. Give Chris more work, because I'll have to figure out how to change the. I mean, it'd make it easier for you, wouldn't it? Because you'd have the general would be simpler, because it'd be a single item per district instead of it being 5 items or 6 items.
No, actually, I mean, the November election from a administrative perspective is probably the easiest election in a 4-year cycle, because there's one ballot. There's literally one ballot for everybody, no matter what.
True.
I can't in essence screw that ballot up. The only way I can screw it up is let somebody vote who's not a registered voter.
Right.
That's basically what would happen.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, well, I rescind that part of it being a bonus.
Okay.
Screw Chris. Chris has got plenty of time. He can do more work.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Seth. Thank you. Well, I've got time to come and talk to you, which, by the way, I was really feeling good, because I thought this is my 3rd appearance now on your esteemed podcast, and I may have been Lauren Ryder. I was listening to maybe Sunday before last. I can't remember, but she was indicating she'd been on here like 4 times.
This last one is her 3rd.
Okay, so I'm even with somebody. Okay, I was thinking I was like the number 1 guest, but obviously I'm not. Okay, so
I think right. I think it was. I'm trying to think now. I got to think about it. I've had Manis twice, Massey twice, Ward twice. I've had a bunch of 2s, but I think Lauren and you were my only 3s.
Okay.
Maybe Matt Shears. I've had him 2 or 3 times. He's fun to talk to. Anyway, okay, so we went over the dates and stuff. All right, so one thing then, again, going back to pet peeves of mine, how are your new appointees doing? Like, how did that go, that whole process? Didn't you get new appointees?
Help me out.
Because remember last time we were talking, I was pissed off because since I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, I couldn't.
My new election commissioners. My new election. They're my bosses, so they're fine. I love them all. But they're doing well. They're doing well. Everything is sailing very smoothly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just like that one I was thinking about right before you got here.
Yeah, they're good folks, interested in the process, and having election commissioners who care about the work we do it just makes it so much easier. And I can tell you that is not necessarily the case in all 95 counties. Not that they don't care, but there's a little bit of friction sometimes that can cause some problems for us. It's we're ultimately concerned about letting everybody vote.
Okay.
That can.
Well, that's the way it should be. So that is a solid. I was just thinking in my head, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to since I can't vote, I'm just going to go and I'm going to randomly yell and say that person picked up the wrong primary, but we don't do that in city elections. It's going to just to test the gears on that on what is it, a challenge to
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to challenge somebody's bona fides for picking up a Republican primary.
Yeah.
Just for funnies.
Well, you do it this election if you can try to anyway.
Don't
know anybody will know what you're talking about. But
right, and it doesn't do anything because it's a nonpartisan race or whatever.
That's
but
right.
All right, so I ran out of stuff. That's everything I got.
That's everything you got. Well, we are off the clock quick. No, a couple things.
That was the stuff that I felt like I really wanted to make sure I covered because
I got you, and I'm gonna touch on a number of things just to get people ready for the election. But I did think that 74,000 number was very interesting to me. I mean, out of 105,000 voters, about 3/4 of them voted in the presidential election. My point is, I think we talk about this all the time. I know you've touched on it before. Local elections matter, but yet we don't seem to reflect that. And I think this, it's interesting. I've gotten this narrative that we hear in the national media about voter suppression this and voter suppression that, but somehow, 74,000 people voted from the city, 222,000 people voted from the county, 40,000 people in November voted for the very first time ever in Knox County. If we're suppressing votes, we're doing a poor job.
Right.
And I think this is my biggest argument is that if you want to talk about voter suppression, it's self-suppression. We make 14 days of early voting convenient to everybody. For those people who are, and perhaps rightly so, worried about COVID-19 this year, we still have absentee balloting with the option on the absentee ballot request. COVID-19, is my concern about that is an option. You can check that, and we'll mail you your ballot. So there's no excuse. We shouldn't be seeing 11 to 25,000 people. We should be seeing a much bigger number.
I mean, but it's I think it's an apathy thing. I think it's a coverage thing. I have been surprised, I don't know. Here's one of those. This is a question I've had 1,000 times in 1,000 different premises in my life. Is that, has it always been this way, and I hadn't noticed it before, or now that I'm paying attention, it's also going along with more things happening? Because for me, I see a lot more action as far as who these candidates are coming from, at least the sources that I have.
You see it because you notice it.
Right.
And you probably, and now I would imagine, I know I have for years, seek that out. The overwhelming majority, and we talked about this before we started, how many people, and heck, we could throw a rock. Let's just talk to 20 of your neighbors. How many of them know who represents them on county commission?
Right.
The ones who border you, city council, their state house rep, their state senate. How many know this? I doubt very few of them do. I would venture 1% or less of Knox Countyans can tell you everything who elect, and they don't know until they need to know, until they have a fire situation in their yard, or
right.
or a $15,000. I'm going off some of your talking points here. Your sewer system or something.
Yeah.
You had a septic system, whatever it was.
I got screwed by KEB.
Yeah,
I got screwed by the state that'd be on behalf of KEB.
Well, I'm not editorializing on your particular situation, but you felt a need to find out,
right?
And that's why you went and found out. Presumably, most people.
Well, no, I mean, and even realistically, if I'm honest about it situationally, it would have been a little bit of something, but it wouldn't have been nearly as much as something if I wasn't already doing the show first.
Right.
Because the rural metro issue I had, it was, I don't know who to complain to. I don't know who to talk to. And so I called my lawyer first, and he's like, I don't know, man. And so I called a couple different people, talked her out, and I was like,
what time your lawyer told you he didn't know?
Huh?
Your lawyer told you he didn't know?
With my rural metro issue?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where was he at the time? I don't think he was, I don't know. I'm trying to remember, that was many moons ago, but as far as what the law was, he knew, like he told me he could look up the law parts on it, but as far as like who to contact to understand this better, it was not. I mean, it's not his wheelhouse. He's a tax attorney mainly, anyway.
Gotcha.
And that's when I found Nystrom eventually, after a bunch of who's it was, and he was fantastic, but but like my sewage issue and my KUB problem and stuff like that, like I don't think that I would have. It didn't change anything. I just understand it now. I understand why. Yeah. But I don't think I would have had to give. I mean, essentially, regardless of understanding or not, the result would have been the same. And I think if I wasn't doing the show and it wasn't part of this curiosity and playing this game for me, I wouldn't have had the same drive to learn more about it than I did. So, but yeah, I mean, I think you're 100% right. Like, I mean, again, like I'm a perfect example of that. 2 years ago, I couldn't have told you who's what, in that conversation of my personal side of it. It's like, well, it's President Trump. Other than that, I don't know. Yeah. Marsha Blackburn, other people that.
I'll go back to a survey, and this is a few years ago, but back in, I think it was 2014, which would, I think, have been maybe 2015. MTSU, they do these standard polls every year. You've heard of like the Quinnipiac poll and stuff like that. Well, MTSU did one, plus or minus 1,004 voters, plus or minus 3%. You've seen surveys like that. Somewhere between 25 and 30% of Tennesseans could not tell you who the governor was. It was Bill Haslam at the time.
Right.
That's not 5% or 10%. That's 1 out of 4 couldn't tell you who the governor is.
Right.
That tells me that I think we do collectively as a society, we do a poor job, whether you want to blame media, whether you want to blame education, whatever it is. We do a poor job of explaining the basics.
I think there's a couple of problems in that, and I think it's one that I still struggle with, talking to all the candidates that I talk to. Right now we're in city elections. It's like, what is the actual job? Like, what do they do? Mm-hmm. And like you said, you don't figure it out until you need something out of them.
Well, even the big picture stuff, what do they do?
Right. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, I don't think, and as deep in as I am, I'm still not sure like what they really do, because we get into fun ones like, I had this ACLU-TN thing on yesterday, and like it's like they're trying to put some things in place where the city council has some oversight on KPD's spying apparatus or surveillance, whichever term you like better. And and I'm sitting here and I'm talking to this guy, and he's a policy guy, and he lives and works in Nashville, and so he goes in and he's talking to state reps as well. And it's like, well, of these things that we're talking about that are issues, who gave the authority, which a lot of it's state level. Is it one of these things where the city can't supersede anyway, even though it's a city body being KPD? It's like, the complexities of, like, I make this joke a lot recently. Tennessee's 225 years old? Something like that.
Give or take.
And so we're 225 years old, and that's 225 years of at least one session a year of hundreds, if not thousands, of laws getting passed and changed and moved. And that's not counting city and county and local. That's just going on in the state. It's too damn complicated. It's got too many years of too many piles of stuff. And for a layperson who's trying to live their life, go to work, raise their family and stuff like that, to have any clue about any of the nuance of the complexity that is the system at play is near impossible. And so then when it comes down to, hey, vote for me, it's a feeling vote if they get around to voting. We're voting on, this guy seems nice. This guy seems like he cares. Like I pitched a fit.
Because that's easy to understand.
Well, and I pitched a fit, and apparently incorrectly, now that I'm learning more about it, on some of the state level candidates back in 2020 about what they're going to do for schools. Because I still don't know where the division between, I know city council has nothing to do with schools. County commission has a little bit because they have to approve certain funding things. Then there's the school board itself. But then 99% of what the school board's allowed to do comes from the state anyway. And so it's like, well, how do I know that, like, how does the average person know when a candidate is up talking on a subject, whether their job has anything to do with the subject they're speaking on? And I think that specifically is a media issue. I think that's our job as the media to say, I just call myself media.
Second podcast in a row you've done that, by the way, I would point out.
It's a Freudian, I guess. But we keep, I think it's fine. It's our job as the media to say, well, Bill, whatever, running for whatever office is talking about X, that is not his job. That has nothing to do with his job. It shouldn't be considered as part of the job. Because one of the things that frustrates me most is a lot of people are like, well, the county commissioner has the platform to talk about things. It's like, that's not their job. I don't care about their platform. It's the same issue I have with the Colin Kaepernick situation. It's like, I'm not watching football to learn about police brutality issues. I understand that he has the right to get up and do that, and that's fine. But I don't want to watch football games and hear about police brutality. I will happily go down the road to learn more about it because I think it is a problem. But that's not my place to do that. I'm going to watch a football game, and then I'm going to go, like, I'm a fan of escapism. There's times where I just want to get out because this is what I do all day. I want 3 hours.
I will editorialize about this. That's what sports are. They're an escape.
They're supposed to be.
From everyday life. They should be.
They're supposed to be. Like, I can't watch the Olympics. I've been trying to watch the Olympics on and off, and it's always a story of something. It's like, and it's all pre-recorded because it's on the other side of the world, and I can't, I can't watch non-live sports. Even if I don't know the outcome, it's like, I know this isn't live. I can't watch it. That's an internal thing for me. Like, I've never been the type where, like, well, I'm going to miss the championship game, so I'm going to tape it. Nobody tell me anything. I'm going to go home and watch it. I can't. I will just fast forward to the end and watch the last 2 minutes of the game or whatever.
Interesting.
It's weird by me. But anyway, point being is I think we as a society don't know what they're supposed to be doing. We're not getting help from the people in the media who are supposed to be doing so. If anything, they're contributing to the confusion, making it harder to understand. And so a huge amount of apathy makes 100% sense to me.
And from my perspective, I get frustrated and I want to say more and help educate, but I'm also in the position of having to be neutral, because if I start talking about candidates, I start talking about issues, then I'm accused, and we as election commissioners talk about this, election administrators, we're perceived as taking sides.
Right.
And I want to very much be like, and I think we are, like the scorekeepers in a basketball game. If we're doing our job, you don't notice us.
Right.
And that's what I want to do. And that's why it's frustrating to me when people don't understand, but I also think, we have the freedom to either go and learn more or not.
Right.
And are the vehicles out there at our disposal, are they adequate? Are they correct about being able to inform us?
Right.
Because on one hand, it's never been easier probably in human history to learn more about somebody than it is right now.
Right.
I think you could make that argument, whether it's accurate information or not, with the internet,
right,
with people's access to the internet.
I mean, that's part of the why I formatted my cheat sheet the way I did. I didn't other than I think the format of the city elections is stupid. Other than that, it was literally, here's your candidate, Here's their website.
Right.
I'm not going to try to put on, whatever because
Yeah.
again, even as long as I've been doing this, I still don't quite understand when candidate Y is talking about issue A, whether that's accurate inside the title.
Right.
And whether that's something that needs to be discussed. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff going on about different people and some of their home remedies and other issues like that are, I don't know, weird, whatever. But is that part of the job? Then it need not be part of the conversation. I don't see, like, I strongly resent the platform is important. If it's the platform's only important when they're speaking on job. If they're using their platform to speak in something else, it should be the media's job, myself included, to correct that has nothing to do with what they're doing. That's not their job. That is the media's job, is to clarify that to us, because we don't have the capability to know that. If you're supposed to be a political reporter, that's your job.
Yeah. Well,
That's my opinion.
Yeah, I got you
on that part of it, because
I
I get it. Like, I mean, people are people. Like, it's you as a candidate, you should be allowed to have a diverse set of things that you're interested in, what you want to do with your life, and all that kind of different stuff.
Right.
But it should be very defined on what you do and where your job is, and then leave it at that. That other stuff's not. It doesn't need to be important.
Yeah.
Because the poor examples that people try to throw at me why a personal choice thing's important in this conversation just didn't sell. It's like, well, yeah, if they're rapists, that's a problem because they're a criminal. We're not talking about criminal activity here. We're talking about just some homeopathic medicine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Speaking in anyway,
I know what you're talking. I know what you're
everybody
talking about.
I don't think everybody does, and
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And if I can get everything lined up, I'll have that show for you guys too. So. It's a scheduling debacle, as is all of these interviews for that matter. But all right, so I don't know. I don't want to go into 22 yet because I don't want to muddy the waters.
Nor do I. And I actually want to speak about that for a second, because we're getting a lot of calls in our office about people wanting to see the offices on the ballot for 22. They want me to send a list. Why is it not on our website? People are filing appointments of treasurer. Do I have a list of all the appointment of treasurer filings? What we do, and I just want to be clear to everybody who listens to this, and maybe the word will get out, what we quit doing in about 2014 is we don't put up the information for a year until the other year has ended, because then that people who go to our website, that confuses the voters.
Right.
And we'll have people showing up in August and November expecting to vote for general sessions judge, or
Right.
expecting to vote for mayor or sheriff or whatever it is, because so-and-so's announced. So-and-so's already got yard signs up maybe somewhere.
A couple of so-and-sos already have some billboards around town.
Yes, and the bottom line is that confuses the voters. I choose not to put that up. If someone wants to call me and say, hey, can you tell me what offices are on the ballot for 2022? I'll send you a list. I'll be glad to, we posted on our website there, under petitions and financial disclosures, everybody who's filed an appointment of treasurer for 2022, they're listed on there. You have to go through and make,
You have to pick the person.
look at the names, but you can still see that. But I don't do that because it tends to confuse the voter, and I deal with more issues if I have to deal with that, and I have to take angry calls from somebody because sheriff's not on this upcoming ballot. For instance. Where is it? You're trying to hide something. I didn't get the right ballot.
Right.
Then it leads people down a rabbit hole of this.
Which is right. Which it's already potentially there, and you'll probably get that this year anyway. But if you can curtail a little bit of that by not adding that list to your site, at least, that makes sense to me.
That's right. And so November, second week in November, all that'll be up there.
So the question is there rule? Are there rules in place for when you are allowed to announce? I mean, not announce it, but there's no rule on when you're allowed to begin campaigning.
No, in fact, many people have started filing appointments of treasurer and are raising money and having fundraisers and putting up billboards and putting up yard signs and everything they do, and certainly getting active on social media. And as long as they filed an appointment of treasurer, they can do that. So now,
even if I'm going to run for something in 24, I can do it now.
You can if you want.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's wise is up,
Right.
Is,
Well, because I get it, and here this is editorialized for sure, but at least traditionally speaking, when you're talking about a countywide race, it is a percentage more likely that the GOP primary winner will be the general winner.
It has certainly been that way, at least in my experience.
Right, and so again, not to go down the rabbit hole too far, when is the primary for 22?
May 3rd.
Okay, so really, we're within a year of what a handful of candidates feel like is the actual election.
And the first day to pick up a petition for this is December 20th. So right before Christmas is when people can actually officially throw their name in the hat, beyond just raising money and filing an appointment of treasurer, that type of thing.
All right, because again, I get that. Like, I understand the premise of that part of it with the traditional part of how we elect locally as far as countywide elections go. And especially, 60-something item ballot coming up. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's huge. And it probably maybe even a little bigger than that because I did not account for all of the Court of Appeals judges, the Supreme Court judges, the Criminal Court of Appeals judges. I mean, it's going to be an enormous ballot
And
in August.
We may have a poll too, right? We may have a state poll. Did you hear about that one?
I've heard that. I'll wait and see. I'll wait and see what happens.
I think it's almost insulting if they actually do it, in my opinion. But whatever. I mean, it's neat. It's a process, and I like to see the processes do what processes do.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, I feel you could do I don't know how much it costs. I mean, I guess it doesn't cost anything on top of what you're already doing ballot wise.
Well, for us it will because it could be more paper, could be more ink, makes the ballot longer. So there actually is a real world cost to us.
But as opposed, like in comparison to if they were trying to do a physical poll on their own,
I don't know. It's borne on the taxpayers at this point.
Yeah.
You put it on the ballot. Something else I just want to touch on because I've heard a couple of your guests over the last couple of months, and nobody's really broached the subject in any lengthy discussion, but I've long heard since I've been here that there's been a debate back and forth about why not just move city elections to county years. Okay, I've heard people talk about that, and really there's been two arguments that I've heard, and I don't want to be clear. I'm not editorializing. I'm just telling you what I've heard. Two basic arguments for moving city elections to county years. Number one, it's going to be more turnout,
right.
higher numbers of voters, and number two, it saves the city money. Okay, now I've got opinions on both of those, but I'm not going to address those. Although I will address the one about turnout. I don't know that turnout's going to be that much higher, and I want to talk about some of the reasons that I've also heard why to not have them. I think number one, right now we have a short ballot.
Right.
You're going to vote for one thing in August. You're going to vote for 5 things in November. Period. You move this to a city election year or county election year, you're going to be 52nd, 53rd, 54th item on the ballot as opposed to the first one.
Right, and especially if the same format continues in city, you're going to be adding 5 or 6 depending on the year.
Yeah. That's exactly. Would you like to go if you're running for 6? Let's say you're running against Roberto. You live in this city. Do you want to be the first or second thing on the ballot? You want to be the 52nd, 53rd thing on the ballot? How many people are going to hang in there? And I'm just telling you from a factual perspective, they're not going to hang in there and vote for all those.
So that reminds me of a question that I think would be is I don't know if you have the data on, but like when we have these longer county ballots, is there a percentage that doesn't finish the ballot?
Oh, absolutely. You can go down and you can get on the website right now and look at the returns from, you can go back and look at the returns from August 14 or August of 18, a midterm, which is where the biggest ballots generally happen, are those August elections, or 14, 16, 18, 20. And you will see that the number of people who voted for governor is much, 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 much higher than the number of people who voted for
whether or not we keep a law director an elected position.
Exactly, or anything else near the bottom of the ballot. When you start getting down to like Board of Education members or something countywide, like maybe some type of clerk or something.
Right.
The number of governor and the number of whatever's voting for that down ballot is much, much lower. And I will tell you, there's a lot of people.
So, okay, I apologize for interrupting, but
please.
Same premise is on, well, did they line up? What all was on the presidential ballot this year?
You didn't have much locally. You had you're talking.
Do we generally have that, or is it always separated that way?
It's always separated the same way. Pretty much, yeah. So basically, what happens is in your presidential years, your county ballot doesn't have a whole lot on it. In presidential years, you've got I think law director, I can't remember, register of deeds maybe, or property assessor, one or the other, and that's about it. Locally, there's like 4 county commission seats, but not much.
But same premise though, is you're going to have, if you have 100 ballots turned in, all 100 of them have president, but like 20 have a register of deeds.
99 will have president. Maybe 70 have register of deeds, or 50, or whatever it
right.
is. A lot of people don't go down, but they go in there to vote mayor, to vote governor, to vote sheriff, something really big.
Right.
And then they'll, a lot of people will just skip those other races. And
right.
I'm not recommending that or not recommending that. I'm just telling you what the numbers say.
Right. Because again, that's one of the things interesting to me, especially given this last year's election, is that because again, referencing Matt Shears, they were counting on down ballot. Mm-hmm. They were counting on so many people were going to vote for Biden because they couldn't vote for Trump. And since they voted the D on the top of the ticket, they were going to go D down ballot, which didn't seem to be the case. But,
well, no, but I can certainly understand if there's only 5 or 6 things on the ballot, like a November election, where you're going to have president, maybe a U.S. Senate, you will have a U.S. House, you may have a state Senate, you will have a state House. That's basically 5 offices, and then maybe you've got some questions at the end. Most people will probably stick around for all 5 of those. You get down to 60 items on a ballot.
Yeah.
The numbers tell me people aren't going to do that. And I'm advocating you vote everything right now. I'm looking at you on YouTube here, but they're not going to. And that's a fact. And I think that's why when people say, let's just move those city elections to county years, I'm not sure that it's going to lead to a huge increase in voters and or an increase in informed and knowledgeable voters, because we know a lot of voters are going in there to vote for mayor, vote for sheriff, vote for governor, vote for president, whatever it is.
Well, I think you touch on an important point on any election is the informed part.
That's right.
Like I've gotten to the stance where I used to be we need more people voting, and it's no, we need a higher percentage of smarter people voting. That's opinion.
Certainly more informed. Yeah, certainly more informed.
At least know what they're, because again, I mean, I'm trying to figure out and I'm sure I'm capable of finding it at some point, but what are the parameters of job A, B, or C? Mm-hmm. I don't know that, and I'm playing this game. How many people are voting that don't even have a clue? Right. Because I don't know. Yeah. And I mean, if I don't, and again, not to toot my own horn, but if I don't know, how does my neighbor who's just living his life doing his thing, not doing a podcast because he's curious, they don't know that, again, on the city races right now, there's a lot of talk about property tax, obviously, because we had the cap the tax initiative and all that other kind of stuff going on. And it's like, how much authority does the city have to do X, Y, or Z? How much, and how much is that affected by who the assessor is versus, which right now we have the current assessor who, as far as I understand, is planning to try to keep the position because that's on the 22 ballot. Mm-hmm. But, all these different moving parts and pieces, and, so we're laying all the tax issues on the city part, but there's a whole county office that has a big chunk to do with that too. Mm-hmm. And most people don't understand that. No. And to say that, well, I'm not going to vote for, McMahon or whatever because she's going to raise taxes. I'm going to take Clanaris instead. I think that's the right combo. Because he's not going to allow raising taxes. Well, it doesn't matter if the assessor comes in and changes stuff because the city doesn't have a choice with the way the state law works and stuff like that too. And so this is where I find it most frustrating because year and a half, 2 years into this, and I still don't have a clue. So how is anybody else supposed to have a clue? And how is anybody else supposed to be an informed voter when we try to encourage that when they can't? Yeah. I mean, it's near impossible.
I think being informed takes a lot of work. It does take a lot. Even in today's information age, I do still talk to a lot of people, city residents, every day, have no idea there's a city election going on. And so we'll talk. The people calling me up saying, "Hey, when can I run for sheriff? When can I run for this office or that office?" Because they don't have a clue. One guy calls me yesterday. He lives in Corrington, and it's not Corrington, it's Corrington, if you're saying it right, in East Knox County. But he wanted an absentee ballot request for this upcoming election. I had explained to him, you don't live in the city. Oh, we can't, I can't vote in this election. I said, no, you can vote this coming May.
Hey, at least he knew there was an election.
At least he knew there was an election. He's heard something. Right. Another thing about,
I take credit for that. It's all me.
It had to be somebody listening to your podcast. I think another thing that jumps out at me is there's been a lot of banter the last month or so, and whether I'm reading a website or whether I'm listening to a podcast or whether I'm seeing a TV interview about these races being nonpartisan. And I'm not going to editorialize on that, but I will tell you that if you throw these city elections, onto an August ballot, I promise you they're going to be more partisan. They will be, because people now every day we get these calls every day in our office. Who's the R? Who's the D? Right. Who what candidate believes what? Blah blah blah. We're going to get those calls times 100 for August if you have city elections on there, because they don't. We get them now for we have town of Farragut. We do their elections August of every even numbered year, and we get those calls. We get them from the school board. Well, who's the R and who's the D? It's going to be the same thing for these city races. I'm not sure that the city wants that, and I'm just from folks I talk to. I'm not editorializing. I'm just saying I just don't think they want that. I think another reason, frankly, is if right now Andrew Roberto, Kim Smith, anybody like that, they're all competing to raise money against each other right now. Well, if they have to raise money next year, they're raising it against whoever's running for mayor, whoever's running for sheriff, county commission, state house, state senate. Fewer pot of dollars for them to get their money to get the word out. Right. And I think sometimes it's just things like that folks don't think about. They just think, oh, well, we'll get more voters and it'll cost the city less. And it's like, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Right. And
I think one of the things too that is another one of those kind of dynamics people like to talk about is like, well, election day should be a holiday. We should get off work so that there's no excuse not to vote in this, that, and the other. And it's like, well, We have them every year. We have them multiple times a year. So
Well, my argument to that is we have 14 days of early voting,
Right.
including 2 Saturdays, over
Right.
111 hours. Yeah, I'm on my soapbox because I will editorialize about this all day. I love early voting. There's nothing wrong with early voting. Knox County, out of 95 counties in the state, is always in the top 5 or 6 in terms of its percentage of voters that vote early. And there's nothing. This is not a new concept, Seth.
Right.
We're in year 27 of early voting in Tennessee.
Well, that's one of my pushbacks to the argument anyway. It's like I can't think of a time where if I wanted to vote, I couldn't have.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's my argument to anyone who screams voter suppression. It's like once again, 40,000 people voted the first time. 153,000 people voted early in November. If we're doing it, we're doing a poor job.
Right.
Because we're giving everybody an opportunity
Right.
to vote.
I don't think and again, I don't think there's a, I don't know. I kind of like the idea of everybody doing it on the same day just because there's more pomp. But I mean, I guess they're like
For the record, I don't. But okay.
You could, because it's your job.
Yeah.
So are you allowed to start counting early? Because I know
No.
that was the thing. So all the early stuff goes into a box, doesn't come out of the box until
That's
polls
right.
close on
Cannot
day
be
of.
cannot be tabulated until the polls close. That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yep.
Just because I mean, we like to pick winners, and if I already know that whoever's winning, then I'll vote for them. And
Well, that's the whole point. That's the whole point why we can't tabulate results until the polls close on election day. Because in theory, in a big countywide election, what's your biggest precinct? Let's say one of the Farragut's they're still open, and we start counting votes, and all of a sudden somebody who's in line at 7:55 all of a sudden says, "Oh no, well so and so's got 73% of the vote. Well, I'm just not going to vote, or I'm going to vote so and so." That's exactly the reason why the law is designed that way.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. I don't have an opinion on that. I guess because for me, my ballot wouldn't change. I'm not a city resident, so I don't get to vote this year anyway. Right. And when it is an even year election, it wouldn't be on my ballot. It would be another subset of ballots that you'd have to provide at my station, but it wouldn't be on mine personally. But
that's right. That's exactly right.
I agree with the premise that.
And that makes it more complicated for us. You bring that up because here you're in precinct 71, Rocky Hill. So if you choose to wait until election day, you go vote at Rocky Hill. You could obviously vote at Downtown West early voting. But I'm going to have multiple ballot combinations for the same precinct, which makes it more complicated for me to administer and for my workers to administer, which is more important.
Right, because my neighbor 3 doors down
is going to get a different ballot than you do.
Right, because he's in the city and I'm not. Right.
So he's going to get that. Yeah.
Right. And so I don't know. I have to think about it a little bit because I mean, again, I get the premise of the super long ballot being less likely. I don't know that I care as much. I guess about the fundraising part. That part to me, I don't know that I feel a particular negative on the that there's less opportunity to fundraise. I don't know that bothers me.
But you're not running for office,
right?
If you were running for office, you may feel very differently,
right? But as the conversation especially goes, is that like the money is part of the problem.
Could be.
Yeah. You're so good at this, not answering.
Well, I'm just telling you what candidates are going to think. I'm just telling you. They may not like that. I think this is it's just this whole argument around people don't have the opportunity to vote.
I don't buy that for a second. I mean, maybe some county person way out in the middle of nowhere that doesn't have a vehicle, that doesn't have the internet somehow, which they're going to have pretty soon from KB anyway, which I hate, but that's a separate something. I can't think. I can't find a good excuse that if you wanted to vote, you didn't vote this year.
That's right.
Like there's no way. Like if you were let me clarify the statement. If you were eligible to vote and wanted to vote, there's no excuse for you not to vote.
Thank you. And I think another big one that we hear, even though it's not numerically, I don't think that's a problem, is photo ID is a big issue.
Right.
Okay. Photo ID in Tennessee, we voted 222,028 people in November of 2020. We had less than 60 people who showed up at the polling place without a photo ID valid for voting.
Right. I'll put it this way: you have to have a special ID to get on an airplane in this country, but you don't have to have an ID to vote.
Yeah. Well,
that's a conversation that
in some
that's
states
really
you don't.
happening.
But I think for us the issue is if somebody can't afford an ID. We literally have something at the polling place called an affidavit of indigency that gives you 2 conditions. Either A, if you have a religious objection to being photographed, or B, if you can't afford a photo ID for whatever reason, you can't get there or you can't afford it, you sign that piece of paper and you vote just like everybody else does. Period. No questions asked.
And then there's some background work that you guys have to do to clarify.
No, not at all. If somebody brings proof forward that so-and-so actually
So again, this is one of those that if
Yes.
it's only
Yes.
an issue if somebody says it's an issue,
That's correct. Yeah.
and then you have to figure out whether
But
it's
so
actually
few
an issue. or
so
not.
few people do that, because 99.99% of the population
So how many
that votes.
Okay, so out of back, how many indigent voters did we have last time?
Oh, maybe one or two,
Right.
maybe one.
But again, it gets the point across. If you want to vote, I guess the only thing to that to me, if you had a huge number, like if a quantifiable percentage of the population voting that way,
Well,
then
even
that could see it.
Of those 60 that showed up, invariably you hear at least half of them are the excuses of, I left it on the dresser, I left it in my other jeans, the dog ate it, whatever it is. They've got one, they just don't have it on them.
Right.
That type of thing.
Right.
The other one we hear on occasion is someone will come in and he or she is particularly a UT student and they don't have a Tennessee ID or a federal ID like a passport
Right.
or a gun permit or something like
Right.
that.
They have their Kentucky ID, which
That's
is
right, which is not valid for voting in Tennessee.
right.
And we get pushback on that occasionally, and my answer, frankly, is that's handled in the legislature. If you don't like that,
So I mean, you registered to vote in Tennessee, but you didn't register to get a Tennessee ID.
there's a lot of students who do that. Yeah, but they also have the option if they're from another state of registering in their home state.
Right.
So, and they can do that, and I assume vote absentee in most states. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Didn't consider that portion of it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this election a little bit.
Okay.
Really, obviously, early voting starts 1 week from today, August 11th. We're going to have 5 early voting sites. We're going to have City County Building, which is the one required by law. We have to have at our main office. We have a location here at Downtown West, probably not 2 or 3 drivers maybe away from a golf course perspective from being able to hit Downtown West.
Right next to Bearden High School, which I'm not zoned for.
That's right. You're zoned for West. Yeah. Well, that's take that up with the school board. But that's the second one. We have New Harvest Park, which is over there, kind of in northeast Knoxville, right there near what used to be East Town Mall, which I understand is now demolished, or Knoxville Center Mall, I guess is what it was called.
The new Amazon place.
Okay, the new Amazon place. We have Meridian Baptist right there on Chapman Highway, right in the middle of South Knoxville. And then our new one, replacing the Love Kitchen, which we were at for over a decade, is Eternal Life Harvest Center, which literally is next door. It's just it's in a strip mall there, plenty of room, plenty of parking. It's flat. Generally speaking, for early voting, our hours are 10 to 6 on weekdays, 11 to 5 on Saturdays. The last 3 days of early voting, which I believe are August 24, 25, and 26, we're open till 7 o'clock at night. So in case you work late, we're open 2 Saturdays.
And all of these have bus stops?
All of these.
We're pretty freaking close to it.
Eternal Life has one right there. I believe Meridian has one right there. I know the City County Building does.
Downtown West has one.
Downtown West has one within about 150, 200 yards.
Yeah.
And then New Harvest,
it's right there by the VA, I think.
I'm thinking it's
the bus stop.
That's right. And New Harvest may be within a few hundred yards, but certainly 3 of the 5 are on the bus line.
Okay.
So then I encourage everybody to early vote just because it's easier. I think we know that lines you're going to get through quicker. If someone still has a concern about COVID-19, they, for whatever reason, can't get out to vote in person, they can still, up until August 24th, which is 1 week prior to the election, although I recommend you do it as soon as possible, people can request an absentee ballot. And we'll mail you an absentee ballot to your home. You can vote it. You can mail it back. That form is available on our website. It's also available by calling us. And then, of course, we have Election Day where we'll have 36 Election Day precincts, and you have to vote in your precinct on Election Day. You cannot vote at another precinct.
So since I'm not a city resident, can I volunteer to get paid to be an election worker?
Well, you could have. I've got all the workers I need right now, but certainly, Dan, in the future, if you want to, Seth, I will sign you up. You're very knowledgeable about this.
I have to remember that.
I would absolutely love to have you.
I don't know.
I would love to have you.
I just think we were laughing about it. One of the last times you were on, I was talking to some of the other guys about it after that show, and I was like, I don't know why they call it volunteer.
No, people tell me that all the time. Thank you for volunteering. Oh, your volunteers do wonderful work. Granted, they don't make a lot of money, but they do get paid.
Right, which is I'm pretty sure in the definition of volunteer is that it's absence of money.
Free labor.
Right.
That's exactly right.
And so to be a paid volunteer, it's too late if you guys wanted to do that. I'm sorry. I should have brought it up sooner.
But next year, I will tell you, we'll be looking for folks. So we'll have 3 elections next year, and certainly good folks like yourself we'd love to have.
Well, if I can't be a commissioner, I don't want to be a volunteer either.
Well, don't close the door to it, Seth. Don't knock it till you try it.
Well, I'm not gonna officially affiliate with the party. So
we have independent workers, so it's
not the commissioners. You don't.
Not the commissioners. We don't, but workers we do.
Yeah,
so.
Fair enough. Yeah. All right. Well, all right. I'll put links to the commission site on the show notes. And the phone number's on the site, but I'll pull the phone number off and put it in the links too. Is there anything else you want to get out before we call it a day?
There's nothing else that jumps out at me. One thing I will say, this election, city elections in Knox County are unique because state law allows for municipalities like the city of Knoxville to have what's called property qualified voting. And so people who do not live in the city but who are either Knox County or state of Tennessee residents and registered voters can register to vote as a property qualified voter. I just saw the "You Look" sticker on your little thing here. That's hilarious. Okay, I totally got what was I talking about? Property qualified voters here.
Right, the layman's version is what he's getting at here is that if you own property in the city
equal to 4,000 square feet and your name's on the deed, then you can there's up to two votes per parcel of property that's 4,000 square feet. Just contact us for more information. And we have probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 property qualified voters in the city of Knoxville, people who own property in the city, but they don't live in the city.
Right, but they have to live in the state.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
That's a good clarification because I remember I remember hearing about that and trying to understand that because there's something going on in the state level too that they're trying to change something in that.
I think you're right. I think Becky Massey had something going on, but I couldn't tell you
I'd have to go back to our legislative review show and see if that came up. I don't think it passed this year. I don't remember. Yep. But 2 weeks from today is early voting.
1 week.
1 week.
1 week from today.
Well, 2 weeks we'll be voting too. So anyway, I wasn't wrong. I was just not 100% right.
Yeah. You're the media now, so you have to get everything right.
No,
you're not.
I have to acknowledge my fault and not pretend like everything I do is right.
Okay. There you
go. So we'll have to get you back in early September just so you can beat Lauren in the number of visits, and then we can talk about post primary.
Okay.
See how the primaries go, and I'm excited just because I'm having a better understanding of what's going on functionally and just kind of watching. I think our big show this weekend, I'm going to do my predictions, my primary predictions.
Okay.
We'll see how good I am at what I do. But
and let me say I don't editorialize generally, but I'm gonna tell you for you folks listening, this is a great podcast, great service you provide, Seth, because I listen to every one of them and I learn stuff every time. And plus, I think I've counted now. I think I have been referenced in now 13 or 14 different episodes. So for any local celebrityship that I have, it's all you.
I try to name drop as much as possible because that validates whatever opinion I have. And so it's like, well, Chris told me.
Dropping my name, I'm not sure validates your opinion, but yeah.
But at least I don't know. It's a consequence of my friends that we do the show, the big show with, is that they think I'm full of shit most of the time, and so it's like. No, this is not me saying anything. This is what I was told about X,
right? Or
this is what I heard from this person about whatever subject it is. That's my way to swear the truth on it is that I reference it to a person who they agree knows better than me. So anyway, outro people. Thanks, Chris.
Absolutely.
So does it count to reference Chris Davis on the show that Chris Davis was on? Because Chris Davis told me he was coming today. And that's how I knew he was going to be here. So
15.
We're almost in agreement at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. You can go to our website, almostinagreement.com. You can get all the episodes there, as well as your favorite podcast providers. While you're in those places, like, share, friend, tweet, subscribe, whatever it is that those places do to help promote the show, to get it out to more people. And almostinagreement.com/cityelections21. It's my very generic cheat sheet for this upcoming city race. Like I said, I got a couple more city candidates to get the official full list through, and we'll probably revisit some as we pass the primary. So for Chris's sake, I guess we hope Lauren loses so that Lauren doesn't come back after the primaries. But that's probably not how it's going to work out. But we'll see. I haven't made my predictions yet. We appreciate you guys listening. You have a great afternoon, and we'll talk to you all soon.